Are mineral sunscreens so janky? Some of them are so ashy, so wrong on deeper skin tones, right? On this channel, I have tried so many mineral sunscreens, right? There's some good ones, and then there are some bad ones, like they chose violence. And I try my best to explain why mineral/inorganic sunscreens are the way that they are on deeper skin tones. But to drive the point home, I have cosmetic chemist Esther Olu. She is gracing us with her presence on the channel. We're gonna break it down. Keep watching. Now, do yourselves a favor. If you are not already following Esther on Instagram, right? After you watch this video in its entirety, make sure you go to the description box, click on the links, and follow her immediately on Instagram. She's a great follow. We talked about how she got into cosmetic chemistry, and then we went into the nitty-gritty on these mineral sunscreens. So if you don't have a ton of time or you want to skip around but still watch the full video, I'll put timestamps in the description box as well. I already follow you, I'm obsessed with you, and I love your videos, but tell the audience about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Esther Olu. I am a research and development cosmetic formulation chemist. So I pretty much, a lot of the makeup, skincare, fragrance, all of that you see, I'm working behind the scenes in the lab to make all of that for you guys. Pretty much what I do, I spend most of my day in the lab.
Okay, what made you want to get into cosmetic chemistry, or how did you get into it?
Ooh, oh my God, I feel like I'm about to start like this little background story, but so this is back when I was an undergrad. So I went to UC Riverside. I did a double bachelor's there. I was majoring in just regular chemistry. They didn't have cosmetic chemistry at that school. And I was also doing a BA, and it was like a liberal arts degree. So I was gonna study abroad like the summer before my senior year. So I needed money, obviously. I needed some money. So I worked at, I don't know if you've ever heard of Nature Republic. It's like a
skincare
brand. Yeah, it's pretty much a Korean skincare brand. I don't know if it's popular in like the US or not. Mm-hmm. But because like one of my friends worked there, they just took me up. I started working there, and to be honest, I didn't really know too much about skincare at the time. Like I was in the black don't crack mentality. That's like what I believe. Like I don't need a moisturizer, none of that. So when I was working there, that's like where I learned about skincare pretty much. Like, oh, you need this for this skin type. This type of sheet mask does this, and all that stuff. So I was pretty much consulting at the time. So that's what piqued my interest. And then so after I studied abroad, I came back and I was doing my final classes, and one of them was a advanced organic chemistry class. It was hard as hell. It was hard, don't get me wrong. But like one of the things that we did was so we had like, how do I explain? So we had like this final compound, right? And we had to pretty much figure out what was the starting materials. So you have to like reverse and figure out what that was. And it had nothing to do with makeup or anything like that. But it got me interested, like, okay, you have makeup and skincare, right? So what goes into making that? Obviously, there's some type of process, that goes into that. So I was very curious. And like, because I was in class with like these juniors and seniors, everyone was like talking about their careers, like saying, okay, I'm going to do pharmacy, blah, 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 the traditional thing. I'm just like, screw that. I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to, do the traditional thing and pursue pharmacy or medical school or anything like that. I like makeup. Skincare was pretty interesting. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that. After I graduated, it was hard. The postgrad depression, I didn't have like that basic cosmetic chemistry experience. So I decided to do a master's, and that's really like where I got started and got like the experience I needed. And then I ended up working for labs, and yeah, that's pretty much everything.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. Okay. I have like a million other questions, but I'm going to try and keep it concise and straight to what we came here for. How would you describe, or how would you explain what zinc is?
So zinc oxide, it's pretty much like this naturally occurring white mineral pigment. So it has like a diverse amount of applications. Some people use it in like paint. And then obviously we know that, it's also used in sunscreen too. So I'm talking in like the US terms here. So the US they're trying to finalize where it's generally recognized as safe and effective to be used in sunscreen application. So.
And titanium dioxide, what is that, similar to zinc, or how are they different?
Yeah, it's very similar to zinc oxide. So same thing. It's also like a white mineral pigment. They have different chemical properties. Like for example, the refractive index is different, so they scatter light differently. But like if you were to like see, like let's say you have zinc oxide powder and titanium oxide powder, it might like look the same like visually, but they have different chemical properties, especially when you're putting it into sunscreen.
One thing that you said, and we even talked about this in email, you said it is a white pigment. A white pigment. And I think that I wanted to stress that, especially for the audience, because, I try a lot of mineral sunscreens here on the channel, and, it can be frustrating sometimes for people where you have a deeper skin tone, you want to use these physical/inorganic sunscreens, but it can be a little bit hard to wear. So I feel like understanding the fact that it is a white pigment, can make people understand more that it is a white pigment. That said, I wanted to get into the next question. Why does it seem like it's tricky to formulate mineral sunscreens for darker skin?
So like you said, it is a white pigment. So like the problem is that with titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, they both have a very high refractive index. So when this happens, it's gonna cause like visible light to scatter like very strongly. And this is like why we have like this white cast, like specifically for our skin color and like deeper skin colors. That's like why it's gonna appear like white or blue on the skin. When it comes to like formulating sunscreens, so I'm gonna take it back. So like when we think about like medical racism, right? Black people, they weren't really tested, for like ingredients and whatnot. We were kind of like put on like the back burner, and that can still be applied today. We're put on the back burner. We're not seen as like the target demographic for when it comes to like skincare, even sunscreens too. So I'm not gonna say like a lot of brands do this, but when we keep seeing these sunscreen releases, we're not the target demographic for them. They kind of do like what's the norm. They're gonna be appealing to people that are fairer skin. Fairer skin or like the maybe like medium tan, you know what I'm saying? Where like it won't be super bad. Like the mineral sunscreens, for example, they don't really take us into consideration. And some of the materials that we think about, like let's say titanium dioxide or zinc oxide, some of them get really expensive. And so for some businesses, they're just trying to make a sale. If something's gonna cost more money, they're gonna get a return on investment. Obviously, they're not gonna pursue that route. And then we can also think about, people think, okay, black skin doesn't crack, black skin doesn't age, black skin doesn't need sunscreen, all this stuff. Then they're gonna think, okay, well, why are we gonna try to formulate for this demographic? So there's so many different angles that we have to think about, like why it's hard. And these are the things that we need to think about.
Now, this question, I already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So given what you said, it's a white pigment, and, there's already this thought that, these brands may not get a return on their investment when it comes to a mineral sunscreen, specifically targeting our community of people with deeper skin tones, right? But I do definitely see from the type of views that I get in my videos and the type of comments that there is a market out there, right? Can a mineral sunscreen ever look the way a chemical sunscreen looks on darker skin?
I know, I know you want to say no. I don't have like a yes or no answer to this. I think ultimately it depends. It really does depend. I think that sunscreen like innovation has come a very long way, like for sure. And they're trying to find ways to help reduce like the white cast, especially in our skin color. So pretty much think about if we were to use like nanoparticles, like nano zinc or nano titanium dioxide in sunscreen. So the way this works is that the smaller that these particles can get, the higher the chance that the sunscreen can become transparent. Mm-hmm. So the bigger these particles are, that's like what's truly leaving like that white cast. But the smaller you get it to be, there's gonna be like a higher chance. Another thing that we can like think about is, so some sunscreens, I don't know if you've seen this on the ingredient list or not, but some of them use like iron oxides alongside with like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. So some of them will try to use iron oxides, like either like red, yellow, or transparent, if I'm not mistaken. This can help also help with like reducing the white cast, and also it helps us consider, like, because obviously we know that black skin has like a multitude of undertones, so it helps to make the sunscreen a little bit more opaque and look a little bit more natural on our skin. But I'm not saying that, you know, it's possible to make it completely transparent, but there's ways that, you know, chemists nowadays are trying to reduce the likelihood of it becoming like white or blue on our skin.
Okay. So we've talked about iron oxides on this channel before. I had, you know, one of the dermatologists who was part of a study on iron oxides and mineral sunscreens and how great they are for pigmentation. And if you guys are wondering what that's about, I'll link it in the description and above. So iron oxide is a pigment.
You sound you're like, it's a pigment.
I didn't mean it to. I meant to say it more like a question, but I got excited. All right. So iron oxide is a pigment, then, right?
Yes, they're pigments. Even if you like look at a foundation or whatever, sometimes they'll put like at the end iron oxides. All of those, or most of those, are pigments.
Okay.
And, specifically with like red iron oxide, for example, when it's incorporated into sunscreens, red iron oxide specifically is really opaque. But I know sometimes when you do incorporate iron oxides into sunscreen, it can make it feel like a little bit chalky and like a little bit gritty. I don't know if you've ever experienced that before for any sunscreens that you tried. Yeah,
the ones that are a little tinted, I've noticed that some of them do feel a little like
chalky.
Like, yeah. So, in other words, so is the iron oxide what they use to tint some of these sunscreens? Are they also adding in other types of like, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it. I was going to say a colorant, but I feel like a colorant is something totally different. What are they adding into sunscreens to kind of give it that tint?
They try to add iron oxides, I think for the most part, or some type of pigment to give it like the tint. But usually it's the iron oxides that are causing that color change. Same thing with foundations too. So like I said, like when if you were to like look at the ingredient list, you'll see at the bottom where it says like CI and then like a bunch of numbers. Those are usually like the pigments that they're adding to change like the color of the sunscreen or foundation, concealer, all that stuff. Oh, great.
And then iron oxides also give us some protection against blue light. So that's also a great ingredient to kind of look for in the sunscreen. Okay. Another thing you mentioned, so just to kind of recap, so there are ways to kind of make zinc and titanium dioxide a little more transparent, a little bit more cosmetically elegant on deeper skin, which includes micronizing the particles, I guess maybe adding the iron oxides to kind of give it a tint. But there's always this, I feel like anytime we try to, like, there's no like perfect skincare product out there, and there's definitely not like a perfect sunscreen. But when you micronize the particles of the zinc and the titanium dioxide, how does that affect the UVA protection?
It's not really affecting the UVA protection at all. The protection's still there. The only difference is that, like I said, before, so you have like these really big particles, and all that's happening is that they're grinding it, or not grinding it, but like, for a better lack of words, grinding it and milling it to make it very, very, very small. It's still going to provide that protection, but so the protection isn't disappearing as the particle sizes are getting smaller. It's still there. So nothing's really changing with the protection.
Non-nano can mean anything, because non-nano can mean it's this big, it could mean it's this big, right? Yeah. Like there's no, when you micronize the particles, is it harder to get a higher SPF? Does that make sense?
It depends if you're using like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure zinc oxide has less protection. So you need a higher amount of zinc oxide to give a higher amount of protection.
Okay.
Regardless if it's like micronized or like the regular
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I had another question too, because we were talking about, like we just mentioned before, that sometimes that tinting the sunscreen can help with, you know, covering up that white cast, right? But we unfortunately have some like kitchen scientists, you know, out on the internet that kind of want to mix it. I'm not even gonna get into the people who, you know, tell me that they use red raspberry oil and all this other stuff to kind of like make their own sunscreen. I ain't even gonna get into that. But.
No, girl, the shea butter, girl, don't even get me started. They will not release that from their hands. They
not at all.
It is killing our people for sure. Like,
right. And it is funny too, because I made this point in a video that I'm posting tomorrow, that it's like, do you know how hard it is for like people who went to school and who have a career in cosmetic chemistry and they work for big companies, how they still have to go through all of this like FDA testing and whatnot, but you're gonna make a sunscreen in your kitchen. All right, go for it.
Yeah.
So there was a study, right, that L'Oreal did with their Dermablend products, and they were dripping the drops into the mineral sunscreens, and then, you know, essentially you can make your own tinted sunscreen. Since then, I think that L'Oreal is kind of backtracking on that.
Yeah, I read about that.
Yeah, the way that they're like wording that study. But with mineral sunscreens, is there a safe way? And I'm asking a question that I know the answer to, but I feel like when people hear it from you, it comes out better, you know? Can you mix things into a mineral sunscreen without affecting the efficacy of the sunscreen?
No, like you can't. Okay. You shouldn't do this at all. I understand that people, like, you know, they have like let's say a regular mineral sunscreen that doesn't have like a tint, and they want to add that tint. You're better off just applying the mineral sunscreen, letting that cast set, and then applying like a foundation or whatever whatever you want to add on top. So I guess another way to think about this is, I've been talking about preservatives a lot on my page. So think of like when you have a preservative system for like a product, let's say like a shampoo, right? And if I added water, like let's say I went to my kitchen, I added water to like that shampoo, shook up the bottle, you know, that preservative system is not going to be protecting that shampoo anymore. It's pretty much diluted. It's like ruined. You literally have to go back to the lab, test to see if the preservative system is still holding up and providing that protection for the shampoo. Same thing with like a sunscreen. If I add, let's say if I mix a foundation to my sunscreen, shake it up or whatever, the SPF on the bottle, let's say it's SPF 50, you're not going to be getting that anymore. You're not going to be getting that protection anymore. And as a matter of fact, like, so you know how like on directions of the bottle it says let it sit for like 12 to 15 minutes or whatever. So that means, so that's pretty much saying you want the cast to form on your skin so it can provide the adequate protection. But once you're mixing stuff in your sunscreen, it's going to be harder for that cast to set now. And because like that cast is going to be hard to set, there's going to be a higher chance of UV radiation penetrating your skin. So all in all, do not mix anything into your sunscreen. Like, you're better off trying to get like a tinted sunscreen or like a CC cream, or just like letting it sit, applying foundation or whatever you want to apply on top.
Is there a certain way that we should be applying these mineral sunscreens? Because I got a comment from someone, an esthetician, that said that you should, and I'm going to quote it so that I'm not saying it wrong. Press SPF in with the palms of your hands. That way product is absorbed by your face, not your hands, and the physical ingredients, zinc and titanium, won't ball up and separate on you.
So no, there's no specific way to be applying sunscreen. Apply it however you want, as long as you're applying enough of it. That's like what truly matters. So some people just think that like the skin is very easily penetrated, and that's absolutely not true. The skin is really, really hard to penetrate. That's like why there's like so much innovation in like transdermal delivery with like drugs and like penetration enhancers in skincare, like alcohol, for example, and all that stuff. So ingredients, they seriously do not penetrate the skin like that easily. So when it comes to like sunscreen, like you mentioned in this question, apply it as how you normally would. I think so some people have like the problem of like peeling, which is like a very like I think common problem with some sunscreens. So it really depends on like, are you applying your sunscreen immediately after like, let's say like your moisturizer or whatever like that last step was. Like sometimes you kind of need some time to before you add sunscreen on top, so it prevents it from like balling up. And it can also depend on if like they're adding. Let me give you an example, like xanthan gum. So xanthan gum in like a formulation can cause like a lot of peeling, like in a formulation. It could be sunscreen or a moisturizer or whatever. So it really depends on like the other ingredients too. But there's really no set way of how you should be applying sunscreen.
Okay.
Just apply it like how you would like a moisturizer or whatever. Just make sure you're applying enough.
Yeah, I saw that, and I mentioned it to another skincare friend, and she mentioned that her esthetician actually taps her mineral sunscreen into her face, and I'm like, do you know that I would get carpal tunnel in my hand before I'm done putting my sunscreen on? Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that must feel amazing, when you're getting it, somebody else is doing it to your face, but I can't imagine the average person like, tapping sunscreen in. So I'm glad you clarified that. What a time to be alive. I was talking about this with somebody else where we have access to so many experts and information, but not only that, but Black experts. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like it's so good to see. All right, so just to recap real quick again, the reason why mineral sunscreens tend to be so bad is because they are white pigments, right? And there are ways to make them more cosmetically elegant. That includes micronizing the particles, so you make them smaller so they're not as apparent. There are things you can put in a formula that can help them spread a little bit better on the skin. Then there are things that chemists put inside the formulation to make it better, to spread better on the skin or just to look better, namely iron oxides, which Esther talked about. And I have a video on how iron oxides can help with blocking blue light, which can be particularly good to know if you're someone with melasma or you have a persistent pigmentation issue. Make sure you check out the video. I will link it above and below. And then there's, of course, you can wear your makeup on top of it. But like, Esther mentioned in the video, you want to give the sunscreen some time to create that film. You want to maybe give it 12 to 15 minutes. And then you put your makeup on top of it so that, you're not looking like Ghostface Killer. But don't take any flash photos when you do that because, that zinc is white. That zinc and that titanium dioxide can just be shining through when you take that flash photo. But hopefully this video helped you to understand what we have going up against us with some of these mineral sunscreens. As always, I will continue to try more so that you guys have more options. If you haven't checked out my mineral sunscreen for darker skin playlist, I highly suggest that you do because there's some great mineral sunscreens in there, given that they're mineral sunscreens. There's some good ones. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, there's some bad and ugly ones in there too, but I do it for y'all, so make sure you check out that playlist. Follow me on social, links will be in the description box, and I will see you fine folks in my next video. Bye guys.